Well, hello. An update. A number of you have written in saying, when is Simon going to do another podcast and when is he going to do an update? And I'm being a bit remiss, really, I guess. But, I tend to come on when perhaps there's something to say. A lot of commentators are on very regularly, but at least we don't try to sell you Trump coins or anything like that. It's becoming quite annoying, some of these sites. You watch them and then suddenly there's adverts for this and adverts for that. And I do love President Trump, but I wouldn't try to sell anybody a Trump coin. So we try to keep, that side of it out. We don't carry adverts on the YouTube channel. We never have done. We do endorse products that are helpful for humanity, but we don't do things just for a retail value. Right, here we go. Some months ago, I said on more than one occasion, that things were happening. And a lot of people wrote in and said, well, we want to see things happening. And that's a very valid point. We all get a little bit tired of these covert operations, especially if we've got friends and family who are needling us and saying, there's nothing happening and you're delusional or you're mad. So it's important from time to time, and increasingly so, to get things, in people's face. And I had responded to that and said, when we're doing well, when Charlie Ward and Simon Parkes are back on YouTube, because then that shows us that the good guys have taken control, or at least have some influence of control over the social media platforms. So it's no coincidence that both Charlie Ward and Simon Parkes are now back on YouTube. Charlie got a very nice letter from YouTube apologising, and sorry for the fact you've been off air, as it were. I don't think they use the word deplatformed, and welcoming me back, and I'm back as well. So there's some very important evidence that things are happening in that area. In terms of the wider picture, although the mainstream media only gave it a very small covering, on Sunday, a very serious attack, an explosion was aimed at the Prime Minister of Iraq. He was unharmed, but 7 of his bodyguards were injured. That did make it to the BBC, and it did make it to some of the American mainstream channels, although they didn't give it a huge covering. And although, of course, that's a very bad thing, it's indicative that the bad guys are on a losing streak. They're striking out and hitting whoever they can. Now, for most people, they would say, well, Iraq is a war-torn country, and that's precisely where I would expect an explosion. And some point that's correct. But because of what's happening in the financial world, because Iraq is absolutely pivotal in the new changes that are well underway now on this earth, it was a last gasp attempt by cabal to try to take out what they thought would be a linchpin in the movement towards the new financial world. And for those of you in the know, you'll know that Iraq plays an incredibly important role. And those who don't, well, don't worry. Hopefully, in the weeks ahead, it's going to become much more obvious, and that will mean that people will understand why Iraq has played and will play a key role. And that's why that attack. I'm not convinced it was a drone. I'd like to believe it was a drone bomb. I would be very concerned if it was a physical bomb that had been placed in the building. What we do know is that the bad guys had a very clear idea of the Prime Minister's house. It wasn't his official building, his office, it was his house in the green zone. And they were either premature in their attack or he was delayed, because the room that they targeted he wasn't in, but the bodyguards had gone to in preparation, waiting for him. People deliver things to people's houses, so they know the layout. The utility engineer turns up. There are lots of people who have access to people's houses, and you can't screen every one of them. And so, of course, the bad guys are able to build up a picture. So that was important, but it didn't harm the guy, and that was really important. And what happened was that the head of the Iraqi central bank went on a few hours afterwards and said that, this wasn't going to affect the revaluation, and that the head of the bank said, "I want to see the Iraqi dinar back to its glory days." So again, those of you who've been following this, you'll know exactly what that means. So that's an important point, and for a lot of people, it's Iraq. It doesn't matter. It's not what's happening in Europe or Britain or America, but believe me, it is really important. Had they taken the prime minister out, that could well have had serious ramifications for everything. You know, we've got a lot of websites talking about the 10 days of darkness, and suddenly that all disappeared. When is the true 10 days of darkness? The Julian calendar versus the Gregorian calendar. When is London Bridge coming down? The British Queen official death announced. And when is the EBS coming out? When will the military do this, that, and the other? And these are all very valid and needed questions. And I'm not skipping it if I just backtrack a little bit, because it's important here. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe, I'd said on a podcast that we probably reached saturation level with a number of wake and aware people. And I don't think I said we're banging our head against a brick wall, but I think that's what it feels like. We've got to a point now where we've awoken a number of people to the truth, and we're now at a level that we can't push beyond that because we don't have access to mainstream media. So all the people who were fair-minded or open-minded and weren't, cabal riddled in their brain, they were prepared to look at a few links that their friends might send them and, start asking questions. But I'd said a few weeks back that we're now not getting any further. And so it was very heartening, actually, when Charlie Ward said about a week ago that he was also now of the opinion that we're just not getting any further, and that these views or visions have been passed up the line, up the white hat chain, and as a result, they've agreed to start to make things happen much more obviously for the general public. And Charlie used the analogy, well, it's actually a true story, but that he was talking to someone and he said, "Look, Charlie, I just don't believe you. I believe the man on the television." And there are people that say to me, when I hear on television what you're telling me, I'll believe you. I'll believe what you said. And they say I'll be the first one to apologize, and I'll be the first one to say I was wrong. And I have said, look, I don't want your apologies. What I want you to do is to ask yourself why it took you, a man in a tie and a suit, on a mainstream television channel to tell you something for you to believe it, but you wouldn't believe what your heart or your soul was telling you. So don't apologize to me. Just try and understand why you were so brainwashed, so mind controlled, that you had to believe what CNN or the BBC told you, or your newspaper. What is it about them that you have to so slavishly follow? And that's the right word, slavishly follow. So where we are with all this, I think, is now an understanding that this softly, gently, bit of a game, bit of a covert operation has gone as far as it can, because now people need it in their face. They literally need that hand in their face. If the good guys want more of the world's people to, be in a position to understand the truth, they're going to have to move from a less covert, very clever, sometimes too clever, that's my opinion, too clever game, to something that's a bit more blunt and a bit more obvious. We are dealing with a system that for many generations has inculcated the different communities, the different peoples of the world, to only believe information that comes from a set approved provider, whether that's the radio, the television, or the newspaper. And the other voice of communication, the social media, has, for a very long time now been seen as misinformation, when it's actually the other way round, generally speaking. And we know that. So that's encouraging. In terms of what's going on, again, we can only talk about covert operations. It's it's very frustrating that I can't, you know, bring you the Daily Express or the New York Times and show you a front page that says Como hanged, or the governor of this or the governor of that. But that is what's occurring. And in Como's case, he was absolutely vile to the last minute. And it is the Marine Corps that are undertaking all these very special operations. It's not the general army or the general military. It's the Marine Corps doing it. And it's just so frustrating that at this stage we can't show you evidence of that because we don't actually control the mainstream media. And the other thing is that the White Hats don't want this in the open at this stage because it's too difficult. There are other topics that have to be done, but I can absolutely tell you that key players who are vile, evil, nasty people have literally been brought to book. Most of them have been forced to resign, so they resign their position, and then they're arrested and charged, and a military tribunal is held. Some of them are filmed, some of them are not, and then that is what occurs, and that is the reality of it. But so much of it is not in the public eye. Maybe because also dirty washing. There's a view here, isn't there, about laundering your clothes in public. And it's predominantly difficult, I think, for a country that has an international and a world reach to then publicly say that its elected officials have been engaged in the most evil crimes known to man or woman. And this isn't the stage or the time when they want to do that. They are the good guys are focused on keeping the bad guys out. And if you've listened to me and you've been kind enough to keep the faith, as it were, for 11 years now, I've said that it's a war, but it's not a war with bombs and bullets. It's a different sort of war, which perhaps nobody's ever experienced before. And it is taking place on many countries. And thank goodness for Connecting Consciousness, because we have all these thousands of people in different countries who can feed information back firsthand, which is never going to be in the mainstream and maybe not even caught on a mobile phone or a cell phone video. There just isn't time for it. But where it is, we get that. And there is so much positivity happening, and there's also so much negativity happening as well. And this is the problem. I've never been comfortable with the view that these bad things happen to wake people up. I've never liked it. And to his credit, Charlie has agreed with me that if we'd had a say in it, and we never did, but if we'd had a say in it, we wouldn't have gone down this road. I do understand it, and I've said before, I appreciate it and I understand it, but I wouldn't have chosen it. I think that the problem with so many people on this planet is that they are brainwashed. So if you say to people, we're going to force vaccinate your children, for anybody who's spiritual or awake, you'd be absolutely horrid, and you'd keep your children at home and you'd barricade the door and you'd do everything to stop it. But the shocking thing, and I think this is partly what shocked the White Hats, is that these parents are just saying, yeah, okay, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's get the kids vaccinated. Let's do this. Let's do that. Yeah, we've got to wear a mask when we're outside on our own in a car. And the frightening thing here is these are human beings, supposedly the most advanced creatures on the planet, blindly following these type of instructions because it's come from a source that they have been programmed to, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, I'd do what you tell me. And that's the problem. And the way the White Hats wanted to do this was they wanted to shock people, thinking that even this comatose, brain dead group would be so shocked at what was being presented to them, that they would suddenly be shaken out of their lethargy. That hasn't happened. These idiots have just said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I went a little while back, went into a shop, and it was one of those shops that had, I don't know if you have it in other countries, a traffic light system, red and green. And like, if the red light's on, you can't go in because there's too many people in there. And it was green. And I went in and I got a calendar. I wanted to buy a calendar for the wall. And the person handed me a mask and said, "I'll put that on." I said, "I'm not going to put it on. I don't have to put it on. It's not law in this country." "Oh, well, yeah, but the owner of the shop wants it." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. And you've lost your sale. I'm not going to put my money in your shop." And the fear that is abounding in so many places, people out walking their dogs with masks on, people out in the street with a mask on, people in the car on their own with a mask on. You've got to be so either fear-based, or you've got to be so programmable because the BB says do this. And you see these signs up saying we're mask friendly. Not being respectful if you don't wear a mask. I mean, this is lies and bullshit. The government of Britain has said, this is the law of the land. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to. So we shouldn't then be put under this psychological pressure to wear a mask when the law of the land says you don't have to social isolate, you don't have to wear a mask. But it's this push from the deep state through the media, and that's the big enemy, the media. That is the problem that we face. How do we convince our family? How do we convince our friends that big things are happening when the media are not carrying it? And there's only one answer, and that is the media's got to come down. They've got to be taken over and the truth put out. We need an emergency broadcast system in all countries to tell the truth. We need these videos running for 3 days, 4 days on our televisions. We need social media to be either taken down, or if controlled by the white hats, maintaining up, but blocking any of the deep state from trying to get access to it. So I know it's incredibly difficult. Hello boy. It's incredibly difficult. You want to just say hello, come and say hello, come on. There he is. Oh, he's asleep. It's incredibly difficult because we really do want to show people, not because we want to say that we are right. Some people want to say, I've told you so, and I fully get that. But it's really about saying, you need to understand that the world you live in is not what you've believed. And I don't see how anyone, once the truth comes out, and it will come out, how they can ever watch the BBC again. I don't know how they'll be able to do it. There'll be zero take up of the television license in Britain. So I understand how we all feel. It's not how you feel. I feel it too. It's how we feel it, and I'm heartily sick of it. And I know that this month, November, is the changing month. There are people who will write things to me and Charlie Ward and others saying there's no such thing as a QFS. Yeah, well, why did they try to blow up the Iraqi prime minister? There's no such thing. The reason that these people feel that way is because they're so out of the top table where the decisions are made. They're so out of it. They're just getting no intel. They don't socialize or meet in a business sense with these people. They're not involved in it. And the reason that they don't know about it is because they're not the right sort of people to be involved in it. They're not spiritual people. They're people who have a lot of anger in themselves. Maybe they have a lot of hate. Maybe they're just broken people. But they can't believe that the good guys would actually, through a change in the law of the earth, have a system where taxes were reduced, have a system where people were rewarded for being good, have a system where evil is actually pushed away and not engaged with. And of course, a lot of these people are paid. They're paid agents, they're trolls, or they're a robotic bot. But where they're real people, when you actually find a bit out about them, they're totally socially isolated. They live on their own almost. There's nothing wrong in that in itself, but there's a pattern here, and they just can't believe that that good people can actually take control of the earth, and that's exactly what's happening. You know, in 1963, when John F. Kennedy lost his life, that was the turning point for good people, predominantly in the United States military, to say, we've had enough of this. We've had a good president killed. And Kennedy was killed not because he was going to go public with UFO stuff, not because he was about to stop the Federal Reserve directly, but because he was about to get a plan forward to bring gold and silver as an asset back to back the dollar with an asset back to metals, and so ultimately do away with the Federal Reserve. And that was why they killed him, because he was a danger to the cabal. Fast forward to 9/11, all of the gold that was in Building 11. I always get confused between Building 11 and Building 9, but that's my dyslexia. You know, the building where the woman's standing there saying it's fallen down, and no, it's still standing behind you. That was full of gold, and the members of that government, Bush government, got all the gold out, collapsed it. Then there was an announcement that trillions and trillions of dollars were missing from the American budget, but it was lost, of course, in the terrible loss of American lives. And that was the second time that the cabal prevented the good guys from a humanitarian revaluation and taking control of the world's economies for good reasons. So the good guys said, never again, we've got to be third time lucky here. And over those many years, the amount of military people and civilian people who were brought to the cause grew and grew until we have what we have today, which is a very large number of people who are absolutely determined to push Satan out of the earth. And, you know, we have in President Trump the guy who did what he had to do. And people often say, well, what actually did Trump do? Well, he created a lot of executive orders. They needed someone in that position, not actually to take on the deep state. People don't perhaps fully appreciate it, but to provide executive orders, acts of emergency, which allowed the good guys then to act under that, whether Trump was officially in office or not, to enact on that. And so we have a situation now where, as I speak, the financial system of the earth is being dramatically changed and altered for the better, and that will become public. You know, that's one thing we can be totally sure of. I don't know how public people will be regarding COVID-19 or the vaccinations. You know, and I have said this before, it's easier for a government to talk about little green men and flying saucers, and to be totally honest about that. It's going to be a lot easier to talk about that than it will be to talk about COVID-19 and the government of the world's response to that. So I don't know just how much truth will come out, but I do know a lot of truth will come out. And I do know that a lot of people who, up to this point in time, are either totally oblivious, and there are people that are totally oblivious, or people who are pushing it out of their head because they don't want to face it. Those people will either see it for what it is and accept it, or see it for what it is and live a separate life. And there may be as much as 20 to 25% of the population of the earth who refuse to believe the truth because they cannot believe that so much evil was around them and they didn't see it. So it's not so much maybe that they can't believe that men, it's mostly men can do evil, but the fact that they didn't pick it up. You know, here's the question we're going to be hearing so much is, how come you knew the truth a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, but I didn't see it? And people being people generally don't like that, because then they've got to look into themselves and ask why they weren't seeing it, what is wrong with them, because that's not the right way to look at it, but what was deficient in their discernment so they couldn't pick up on it. And a lot of people won't go there. They won't want to admit that they failed to see the truth. So we are going to get quite a few people who will be refuseniks. You know, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, and that's a natural chance or a way that it could go when the information comes out. And what I would say to members of Connecting Consciousness, please don't waste your time trying to educate somebody like that, because it ain't going to happen. You know, we need to concentrate on people who say, right, I just see the truth, and I can't believe, but I can see what's happening, and you know, what can you do to help? Can you send me some links, or what should I watch, or what's your point on that? So we've got that yet to come, and that for me is the biggest work for most members of CC, to be able to direct and help people to the truth. We can't make people believe the truth. We won't want to do that, but we want to be able to direct people so that they can then have that choice and answer their questions. I do want the EBS, and the EBS will happen. I do want mainstream media taken off, and the documentaries or addresses or films showing whatever happens. What's the matter? What's the matter? Come on, come and say hello. Come and say, what's the matter with you? It's all right. Come here. What's the matter with you? Shush. Stop it. Shush. Sleeping and dropped his tennis ball, so he's upset. Let me get it for you. Here you are. There you go. There it is. Good boy. You've done it again. Go and get it. I'm not going to play that game with you. So what I think we have is the next 2 weeks should be of the real great interest. I think that this month, November, or if you were looking at it from the Julian calendar's point of view, Red October, a lot of people got that confused, and I initially did as well. So although we are in November, the Julian calendar makes us in October, hence we're not really out of October, it's Red October. Okay, that's the rule, that's the way they want to play it, then you know, that's the way they play it. So this month in our November will be dramatic. We should see everything that we hope to see in this month. And certainly by the time Christmas comes along, we will be in a position to know most of the truth. But it won't be until January, February that the full picture is revealed. And the Nasara Jisara law, I think, probably for February, March. So as hard as it is for the trolls to believe, there will be a reduction in tax, because the bad people have taken our tax monies, our monies that we've paid all our lives, and they've done the most awful things with it. And you know, if they really used all the money that they took off people, there wouldn't be a single hole in the road. All the pavements would work, all the street lights would work. There would be lots of people to answer the telephones when you phone up to get inquiries. The hospitals would be bigger, better, and more staff, well looked after, rewarded. The police forces would have the men and women they need, the fire departments, the coast guards, all of these things, the paramedics. There would be enough money, but they don't do that. They give these organizations just enough to keep them going. And then they'll turn around and they'll say, we found another 3 million for the hospitals. And as if it's something really, really amazing. And it makes people, you know, feel, oh, 3 million, yeah, that's good for the hospitals. Well, if you were in a hospital administrator, you think, well, that might just keep me in bandages for about 6 months. And people are going to have to learn that there is absolutely trillions of pounds or dollars or whatever it is that has been taken off the citizens of this planet, not used for the purposes that we thought it was used for, and has made some individuals incredibly rich. Now that's going to change. The quantum financial system means that bad people will not have access to the money that they have had in the past, and that money will have to be accounted for through a means or a method that is beyond the understanding of most bad guys who, you know, steal money. Now that is the root of it. And when President Trump in 2018 took the head off the snake, he didn't do what Columbo might do. Lost that. Lost the internet connection. He didn't do what Colombo might do, which is start, at the bottom of the pile and work his way up to the guy who was, causing all the problems. What Trump did was he literally went in and took the head off the snake, the Peso family, and then worked the way down, which goes against every Agatha Christie book I've ever read, I think, where you start with a gardener and you work you out through the butler and all the rest of it until finally it's the lord of the manor who was guilty rather than the butler himself. And so, well, they did it the other way around. They took off the top of the command chain, and so that all the other people didn't really have that direction, and they just went and did their own thing, which is pretty evil, but didn't have the direction. And so when people in the know say to us, well, the war's already won, and I find that incredibly frustrating. I always say, well, not in my backyard, it's not. But they're right, the war was won 2018, in the sense that there was no more command and control from the bad side. And so what's been dealt with now are the minions who operate under that structure. And that's why those good guys are so confident that they've got the bad guys where they want them, because they're not receiving the help that they had. And also, some of the key organizations are no longer influential. The CIA, MI5, MI6, some of these organizations are still operational, doing what they're really supposed to be doing, but are no longer involved in the domestic politics for unseating, a democratically elected person, or spying or tapping. Now, that aspect has been quite successfully stopped now. So when the head of the CIA was dealt with in Frankfurt in Germany, that within their own organization sent a very strong message. Of course, public are totally unaware of it. So what I wanted to do is to say to everybody that there really are big things occurring on a wide spectrum. In Great Britain, there's a TV program called Strictly Come Dancing. Apparently, one of the groups were dancing, and although it doesn't necessarily appear directly in that, the line was, London Bridge is falling down. Now, we know that that's the BBC's own code for the death of the Queen of England, and they then go into this special protocol. Now, that was put in, that was on the song, and we're getting links now, or keys coming out, showing us that a little bit of the puzzle here, a little bit of the lock here, and then you put the key in and you turn it, which shows us that they're getting very ready for this. And they will say, this is the dark side, shall we say, that, the Queen is dead, and therefore we need to have 10 days of mourning. We'll turn off social media to mourn for the Queen, and we'll turn this off and we'll turn that off. And what they're trying to do is to take credit for any action that the White Hats do. So if the White Hats turn off the BBC, then the BBC will claim that they turned it off because it was respect for the Queen, or social media. I don't necessarily think that social media is going to be turned off now, but what I am convinced of is that the evil people will attempt to claim certain things as their own creation. So November, this month now, or October if you're on the Julian calendar, is, I think, a make or break month in terms of the public becoming aware that something ain't right. What happened to the war that was building between Taiwan and China? Where's the armed caravan that was coming up to the southern border? Where are all these things? What's happening? Why are the media showing us this and talking it up, but not a shot has been fired properly? What's all that about? This enormous amount of container ships with everything from toys to food just languishing out. What's that all about? It's not just COVID restrictions. Why aren't Chinese containers being allowed to land in certain places? And why is it right across the world? Why isn't it just in America? Um, what is happening to the stock exchange? We were always told that it would boom and boom and boom, and then it would bust. I checked it this morning, and it was booming away. That doesn't seem to want to bust at the moment, does it? What would cause the stock exchange to crash? Would it be Evergrande? I don't think it would be. I don't think that a housing crash in China is necessarily going to have this huge impact. And where is that crash that was talked up and talked up? Far more likely to bring down the stock exchange would be a revaluation of 26 currencies across the planet. So suddenly balancing and evening up the playing field, the turning off of money to certain institutions. This is more likely to cause panic in the stock market. And, I'm not a financial advisor, never pretended to be one. And I don't, but if I had money in the stock exchange now, I'd literally be buying gold or silver with it, or platinum or something. I would, because things are so about to burst that it's unbelievable. And I feel for ordinary people who are advised by an expert, a financial advisor, who he or she's got that little piece of paper which says, I am allowed to give you financial advice. That's how we are on this planet. You have a piece of paper and it tells you and everyone else what you can do. And they're advising people to do this, that, and the other. Now, if I was to sit down with one of those guys, they wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about. And they would say, yeah, but I've looked at the figures coming from the stock exchange and I've spoke to Sir this or Lord that, and everything's fine. And they haven't a clue what's going on in the world. And because they don't understand the geopolitics, they're going to be as shocked and as taken aback by everyone else. Think about your history about the South Sea bubble, how that destroyed the stock market. Think about when the Titanic went down. Think about what happened to United Airlines when the Twin Towers came down. When things change, and those people who are either in on the know get out quickly, and those that don't, they suffer and pay the price, the consequences for it. What will happen to cryptocurrencies? What will happen to Bitcoin? I perceive the future with cryptocurrencies doing very well, providing they're asset backed by gold, silver, platinum, or what have you. I think if you've got any form of currency that is not backed by a physical resource, then it's just what we have at the moment, isn't it? Worthless, absolutely worthless. And the only reason it's worth something is because the people who currently run the world give it that value, and the people below them have the confidence in that note. So they believe that it's worth that. They believe it will be okay. And they're the sort of people that only wake up when somebody says, I'm not redeeming that. I'm not going to pay you for that. That's worthless bit of paper. I haven't got any money in the bank. And that is the great shock and the wake-up call for those people who have lived this bubble life experience. They literally only see blinkered within 3 feet of themselves. And they're very dangerous because they're the ones generally, not exclusively, generally who have a piece of paper which says that they're entitled by law to advise people. How many doctors have advised people to have the COVID injection, but not gone into any sort of explanation or detail about it? You know what this is. This is, and I recommend you have it. End of story. Because you've got a white coat on and a stethoscope around your neck. People are programmed into believing that. You have a profession and a form of dress for that profession and a certificate on your wall for that profession. The system says that you have the authority to do that. And if you don't have that, you don't have the authority. And of course, you have to pay for that. You have to pay the money to have that certificate and pass your exams. And people are very proud that they pass those exams. And I'm not knocking that. What I'm saying is that doesn't actually make them an expert in their field. What it makes them an expert is they read the peer review papers, they read what they were supposed to say, and so they propagated it by saying what they were supposed to say. And that's not actually an expert in his or her own field. That's just somebody following orders. And I've used that term deliberately. And I've seen some fantastic videos filmed on cell phones of groups of people with lawyer backers going into British hospitals and serving legal documents on that, and making them aware that both the Hague and the Nuremberg court is crimes against humanity. And so I do think that in the coming weeks ahead, we are going to see, thank goodness, in your face evidence that we can say to our friends and family. And there'll be a lot of people out there on social media who are going to be shocked, and they'll obviously have to consider their position. And I think the rest of us can take a bit of a vacation because we fought the good fight. Many of you have fought the good fight for years and years. Some of you it's more recent, but it's all hard work. And when this all happens, we should all take a bit of a vacation because we actually deserve it. And quickly talk about connecting consciousness. I want to be very proud and say that we've now got coordinators in Russia and in China. And I'm very proud of the fact that we've got the reach into those countries now, and we are growing. We're continuing to grow. We've exceeded the 100,000 mark now, and we've done that on a shoestring. And I think that's to be recognised that people right across the organisation have worked really hard for that. And we've got people who are set to have financial arrangements with the QFS. They are German bond holders. They are Dragon bond holders. Maybe they are big players in what might be called Tier 4. And these people are committed to supporting me and, through me, connecting consciousness. And when that comes out, and it's just on the verge of coming out now, we will be in a very strong position. And there's as always rumours going around, and there's one silly rumour that says that Simon's got money for his British coordinators, but hasn't got money for his other coordinators, and he's paid his British coordinators. Well, the person who started that rumour, would you do me a favour, please, and resign and leave? Because I would never do that. I will be in a position when that arrives to pay everyone. Okay, sure. I mean, my Indian coordinator might get paid on Monday, and my New York coordinator might get paid on Friday. But so there'll be days between it. But I would never ever do something to pay one group or favour one group while leaving others. That is not how I work. That's 11 years of never doing anything like that, and that's not how we are. So we haven't had the sort of monies that we need. We are hoping that it's fairly imminent to be in a position to start looking at coordinators and saying, who's very desperate. I've got coordinators who, rather than take the COVID injection, walked out of their job. Now that's a principled stand, and everyone has to make their own decision. I've got members who've done that. Rather than take that injection, they would lose their livelihood and walk out. And we know what's coming. We know what's coming. What's coming is that company in the months ahead is going to be paying you compensation. That's what's going to happen. But in the meantime, I've got to support you guys. So we're going to prioritize those people that need support and help. And then when the full funding from these very generous benefactors, when this funding comes through, then we will treat the organization completely on its own in terms of one group. But I can absolutely assure you that I am not funding groups in one country and not funding groups in another. That's not what I'm doing, and I would never do that. And the person who put that out, please leave. Don't want you. Just go. Take yourself off. That sort of nonsense we don't need that in connecting consciousness. We've got enough real issues that we need to deal with across the planet. And I want to thank all my coordinators for working so hard, tirelessly, to support your groups, to continually give people the strength to go on, the confidence, and overcoming your own personal issues. We've got people in Africa that have power cuts for maybe 6 hours a day. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine living in a country where for 6 hours of the day your electricity is turned off regularly? And we don't know how lucky we are when we live in a world that we're a part of the world that uninterrupted power and all the rest of it. And we need to understand that humanity is not all in one place. We're in different places, and so the issues are greater in some places and less in others. And a part of connecting consciousness is to connect the consciousness around Mother Earth, so that we at least appreciate that we are all one. But we have to value everyone and not have these evil, preconceived views and visions that have been placed on us. So connecting consciousness is exactly that. It's an organization which in the coming weeks and months is going to grow hugely, because we have the vision that the white hats have. We literally have had this vision for many years before it became fashionable through, I don't know, the word white hat in this sense of the word, or the QFS. And so we're not Johnny come lately to this. We didn't jump on a bandwagon. We've been here for many years now, and this is our vision, and we haven't changed that. We don't change to suit the mood. We have a vision and a set of rules, and they've been with us for a number of years now. And just because it's fashionable this or fashionable that, so many commentators or groups, they will change to, not pander to, that's not the right word, but they'll change to suck up to a particular vision or a certain group, or they'll just jump on it. And those organizations that say, no, these are the rules we have. We're not going to play the game because we want to get the limelight or the spotlight from this, and this is where we are. And that's the one that will come through at the end, because we stand in our truth. And that's all I've asked any CC members, to stand in their truth and to let their soul or their heart decide. And please don't listen to mainstream media. And some of the nonsense on social media now, it's actually as bad. It's well, it's so bad it's laughable. Unfortunately, it's very serious, so of course we can't laugh too much, because it's it's difficult to appreciate that humanity can be so fractured and so divided, and so let these people go their own way. So I want to thank everyone. We are now just on the point of a pin. That's where we are now in terms of what's about to happen to the world, and the sooner it comes, the better. Happen tomorrow for me, please. Let's get this over. Let's get it done with. Let's get this world reorganized. Let's get it working for good. Let's not reward evil. Let's reward good. And those of you who are looking to set up your own projects, if you are wanting to do your own projects, then you will need the 100 trillion Zimbabwean note. It's the AA 2008 note. So the only ones that the Redemption Centre or the banks will probably take is the 100 trillion. So that's what you need. If you're a CC member and you've filled in your form from my PA, that should be returned, then those will be looked at. I'm going to have to look at every one, and I will do. And we'll look at those, and there will be a portion of those that will be supported and funded. But there's no harm in people, going on some platform and buying, if you can, buying one of these notes. I've told you the note now to get. Of course, people are buying, Iraqi dinar, and that's not a humanitarian. That's a currency note, but that probably set to do quite well. You could use that for a project, and other currencies. And so public will see this happening, and they'll just say, well, where did that come from? I was so busy watching the BBC News that I didn't actually understand anything of this. And we've got to get on with our lives. We've got to get on and do the good things. Another cat. Which one is that? Oh, that's Rowan. Hello. Come and say hello. We've got to literally focus on doing good. Don't get sidetracked. What the evil side would like to do is to derail you, take your attention, fill your life full of fear, and hit the people around you so that their fear impacts on you. Do you want to say hello? This is Rowan. I don't think you've said hello before. It's beautiful. And so, just be strong. It's nearly over. The good side will win. The evil side was never going to win. Remember, Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain. That's exactly what this is all about. Right, lots of love to everybody. God bless. And the sooner the good guys get this on, the better. Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.